What do you get when you cross a comedian, an illustrator, and a professional bingo host? Well, it turns out you get mugged in New York, folks. Here to tell us about that experience and many others is my good friend and our guest today, Will Pottorff. Professional Willy P in the house.
Hello.
What's going on, bro?
It's good to see you, buddy.
You too, man. This is fun. Happy to have you here.
I'm happy to be here.
Bingo man in the house.
That's right, the bingo queen of Salem.
The bingo queen. What was your original bingo nickname?
Original bingo nickname. I think it was just, there's Will. That's how it started. Like, that's Will.
What's your birth name?
Birth name. Christian given name. And then it was like, hey, it's the bingo guy. Which I did get called that today.
The bingo guy?
Yeah, we were out about, like, filming a bingo promo in Salem, and literally a guy drove by and was like, hey, it's the bingo guy. And I was like, hello. And they drove by, and I was like, all right, that's cool.
Do you feel validated?
I felt a little validated, actually, and, like, Deanna was there, too, my wife, and she was like, yes.
Yeah, you get to feel cool in front of your wife.
This is why I married you. That's exactly, we both nodded, and it's like, that is correct.
She's like, I did it for the bingo.
I have always done it for the bingo. That's the only thing I've ever done anything for. That and my love of Jesus Christ.
It's documented here, folks.
Right here.
He's all around us and in our hearts.
He's everywhere. He's inside the walls.
It's a beautiful thing.
Your house is bugged.
By Jesus.
Yes.
You just got married recently, right, Will?
I did. Back in September. It was fantastic, actually. We had like a lovely, I think, what would you call it? Like a party over here, like a engagement party.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It was very lovely
fun.
that you hosted along with Melly, and it was like our friend Melly. It was a lot of fun. It was very nice, actually, have all the friends together and, like, you know, man, we partied pretty hard.
Yeah, we did that bread ceremony. That was interesting, too.
Yeah. Alina, like, brought her Russian bread ceremony where we had to chew bread, and I chewed the most bread, so therefore I am head of the household. And for some reason, I still get questioned around the household. For some reason, even though I should, I'm still like,
And you had the ceremony in Pennsylvania?
So we had like we did it in reverse. We did like kind of like, okay, let's have like all the friends and family for a big wedding shower / reception, whatever, at my mom's place in New Jersey. And then we did the small, like, okay, I got the Justice of the Peace at Salem to go over with us to, like, the garden at Rope's Mansion, and we read our vows, and we exchanged, and we got there. And it was intimate family, and then we went to a restaurant, and it was like, you know, so it was kind of like, we did it in reverse. You know why? Because... I'm weird, and also we didn't really have that much money, so it was nice. You know?
Yeah, non-traditional is more fun anyway.
Yeah,
I think it's become like the new tradition. Most weddings are kind of a little quirky.
Yeah, and we were always gonna have like a quirky wedding, so
You're quirky people.
Yeah, exactly. Extremely.
Extreme.
Mm-hmm.
So you started out in Pennsylvania.
New Jersey.
New Jersey?
Yeah.
Is New Jersey the capital of Pennsylvania? Or are they two different states?
You would believe it or not, it is actually two different states. Vastly different, but also very much the same in some respects, Mainly just because they're next to each other, but, But that's the thing. I didn't really go to Pennsylvania that often. You think I would be there all the time, but it's just like, our bordering cities were like, Philadelphia and Camden and everything. So it's like, I'm not going to neither one of those, especially Camden. Camden's like the worst city in all of New Jersey. I think still. I don't know. I think they cleaned up their crime. Yeah, but either way.
I haven't heard too many nice things about there.
It's never been good.
Now, if Vice is doing a piece on your city.
Yeah. It's like kind of like there's something up. But, that said, I grew up in central New Jersey.
So in suburbs?
Yeah.
In the city?
I was a suburb kid until like my parents got divorced, and then it was like my dad was living in the city. He was like living up in the Bronx, and then So basically, I'd be like spend the weekends over in the city, and then go back in this, stay at my mom's in the during the week for school, and it was like back and forth, So I got the best of both worlds.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, not the divorce part, but the experience.
No, divorce was great. Actually, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. You ever experienced double Christmas?
No, I've heard about it.
This is a thing. Parents, take note. Actually, if you really love your children, you will break up your marriage, and then you will have to compete for your child's love by getting them better and better toys. Because that's the thing. It becomes just like a Cold War of just love, where it's like, and I know where the children are the proxy wars that they have to fight. So it's like okay, if we get that, like maybe I turn that nation against it. It's the same thing with like, okay, Jane's getting him this, I'm gonna get him a GameCube, and then that's how I'm gonna get his love, and then and the child always comes out the winner. That's what I'm saying. I'm not emotionally damaged, is what I'm trying to say as well.
Yes, in every divorce, the child comes out the winner.
The child is always the winner in the divorce.
And it's a Cold War of love.
Cold War of love.
It's beautiful. When did you start? When did you find that you started being interested in art and drawing and like doodling and painting, and then how did it progress?
Yeah, I mean, I am an illustrator also by trade, and no, it started very young. I was always just drawing. It was like one of those where it was like a...
When did the penises start?
The penises. Not sure we could talk about that right now. Like, drawing dicks, you mean?
Yes.
I mean, that's always been there. I mean, I didn't draw that many dicks. That is one of those where it's like, eventually I would get into that later when it's like, oh, I was a good artist and I could actually draw pretty, like... Because I drew...
It's too real.
Yeah, that's the thing. Once I had that power, it was like, oh, there's no going back. Because before it was like, oh, I was just drawing dinosaurs all the time. And it was like, oh, they look all right. And then, years of like just drawing and schooling. And then eventually it was like, oh, I could use this power to be immature. Which is cool. But yeah, no, I was just drawing as a kid all the time. Didn't really focus on anything. And like I said, I was drawing dinosaurs because I wanted to be a paleontologist so badly. And then I realized like, oh, I really don't want to learn about geology. I actually want to just draw dinosaurs. I think that's, I should be an artist. That makes sense.
You didn't want to find the bones? You just wanted to draw them?
I didn't want to. Well, I think that's the thing. You think that's what paleontology is. You go out, you find dinosaur bones. Like right over there, there's an intact T-Rex skull sitting out of that rock. And it's like, no, it's never the case. It's truly like, okay, we found these fragments, and maybe there's some more fragments over here. And then you have to study, what was it? The sedentary, this, as you can see, like this, right over here, this is where we'd find some primary bones. And then we go here. And it's just like, oh, it's boring. It's boring. Even though if I did become a geologist, I probably would make a shit ton of money now. Because, like, geologists just get hired out by, and this is true, actually, all the oil companies. Oil companies buy up geologists because they know. It's like, okay, you're going to find oil there. You're going to find oil there. If you look at the sediment, blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah. So they're, I don't know, right? There's probably some wealthy geologists out there.
Probably, especially if they're in cahoots with the oil companies.
Exactly.
But I think that your funny and creativity would have still come out, which would have been kind of funny. Like,
yeah.
You picture yourself like somewhere in the Sudan, like trying to look for oil, and then you're also like the bingo man. You're in some kind of character.
Yeah. No, I'd honestly, if I was working for one of those oil companies, I'd be doing all kinds of funny things. Where it's just like, you know what? Let's just cause another leak. Yeah. Oh man, I want to see another Dawn commercial where they have to clean a duckling. Yeah, BP.
Yeah, those oil leaks are.
Sorry, Will P. There we go.
Genius. I saw the BP oil spill.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I flew over it.
Oh, my God.
It was in 2010, and it's I graduated high school, and I went to Jamaica that summer.
Oh, my God.
And we were flying. We had a layover in Dallas, and when we were flying across the Gulf, captain or the pilot got over the loudspeaker intercom, and he was like, well, folks, if you look out the window, you can see the BP oil spill that's been on the news.
Oh, man.
And it was just like a big like shit stain, like a big mud stain in the ocean.
Oh, just a terrible, like, oh, man.
Yeah.
Wow, that's horrible looking.
Yeah, and then Mark Wahlberg was like, I'm making a movie about this.
Yeah, I watched that movie. It's
good
pretty
one.
good.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty it was like one of those where it's like, how are you going to make this into a movie? And it was like, not bad.
Yeah.
It's pretty dope, actually. It's like Peter Berg, right? Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, he gets one every
I don't know. I guess I don't know. Most directors, I would say, make a lot of good movies.
Yeah.
He's really hit or miss.
Well, Mark Wahlberg is like, I hate him, but like he'll work with like good directors, and like it's like anything. It's just like whatever the material is. It's like because for every like Departed he's in, it's like, oh yeah, he'll still do like Transformers 5, Age of Extinction, if I'm not mistaken. Or no, Age of Extinction is Transformers 4. Transformers 5 is The Last Night. Sorry, just to.
They all have a title beyond the title.
Yes, they do.
What's the very first one?
It's just Transformers.
And then Transformers 2 is
No, it's
Age of Ultron.
No, that's. You're mixing two different franchises.
Really?
That's Age of Ultron is Avengers. It's Avengers Age of Ultron. Transformers 2 is Transformers Rise of the... Wait. What is... Revenge of the Fallen. There we go. It's Revenge of the Fallen. And then the third one is Dark of the Moon, because that's when they fight Pink Floyd. And then Age of Extinction, followed by The Last Night, then Bumblebee, then...
It's called Bumblebee.
They're just it's like a prequel. It sucks. Anyway, yeah,
Bumblebee.
Transformers, just Bumblebee. It's just called Bumblebee, based off the whatever. And then there's Transformers: Rise of the Beasts. Now there's beasts involved.
Which one?
Then there's Transformers 1.
Which one does Megan Fox take over that woman's body?
Take over that woman's body. Are you thinking of like Jennifer's body?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good movie. I like that one.
I was trying to think of the word possessed. That's the word I was missing.
Well, she gets possessed by a demon, right? Is that the whole thing?
I haven't seen it. I was just trying to tie it in.
You've never seen it? It's good.
Jennifer's Body's a good one?
Yeah, I recommend it. It's one of those when it first came out, I think everyone was like, Megan Fox, whatever. I think it's like, because that was that time period where it was like they were riding on her hotness to sell a lot of movies. I mean, high school, full disclosure, we were all like, kind of like, let's go see Transformers because the movie, like the robots look cool, but Megan Fox is kind of the hottest thing around. We need to go see her. And we did, and it was like, it was a good time to be had. We were like high-fiving, and like it's like, wow, this is the height of just entertainment for us high school kids. Yeah, and then, I don't know. But, yeah.
How many kids were in your graduating class?
Oh, I had a big class. It was like at least a couple, I think like 1,000.
Oh, wow.
1,000 kids, yeah. I mean, we had a really big class, like I my high school was Ridge High School down in New Jersey. It was like the Bernardsville area, down there, if you've ever been.
I've never been. I thought it was in Pennsylvania, so that shows how much I know about it.
That's okay. It's okay.
It kind of all blurs out past New York.
I get you. I mean, because it was like, I liked where I grew up, but it was a suburb, you know what I mean? It was just kind of like a very quiet, boring-ass suburb and everything, which is fine. It was a fine kind of like, oh yeah. But it was one of those where it was like clearly like in its own bubble, in that thing of like, okay, I got to get out of here. I got to go at least be around a city. Because I was like going in and out of like New York all the time. And it's like, I love New York. I love the city.
Do you still live in New York?
I do. Like I'll stay with my dad and like kind of go down there for like job things and stuff like that. And, seeing family as well. Because I got family all over the city, family and friends. So I'm always kind of down there.
Nice.
Yeah.
Have you done any stand-up in the city? In New York?
I have, actually. I did a showcase once, a couple mics. Used to do like, because that's the thing. I'd love to do mics there, but the only mic I would go to that was like any kind of fun, when it was actually a fun hang, was like the Creek in the Cave.
I've heard about that one.
Yeah, but then they kind of folded up and like moved to Austin, which is like kind of a bummer. But that was the one where it's like, oh yeah, you just hop on like, you take like this. At least where I was coming from is like, oh yeah, you take the 6 down, you take the the 7 across town to Queens, and it's just like it's the first stop. It's like boom, it's right there, and it was like easy going, and like you'd be out around like 1, and then I'd be able to get back to the Bronx, and it was yeah.
Fun.
It was a fun time.
Yeah, there's something fun about like taking public transportation to comedy.
Yeah, I mean,
it's time to kind of think and be in your own head, but also out in the
Yeah.
crazy space of public transportation.
I just love New York for that reason too, because it's just like the subway. You just like there. I'd get so much reading done. One, it was just such a nice like. Okay, I guess I just have to chill and just sort of like be in the moment and like kind of like And it's like you manage to show up on time for a lot of stuff as long as you like time it out properly. That's like one of those things where it's like, oh yeah, you can never rely on public transit. And it's like, no, you can, and it's just about timing out right and. There's just a hustle and bustle to it all, and it's just like, hey, that Big Apple, it's just it's getting bigger every day. You know what I mean? You want to take a bite out of it, and it's like, you know what? Sometimes you get a worm, other times it's pretty sweet.
And other times there's fentanyl.
And there's always fentanyl, actually. Well, there's always someone dying of fentanyl on the train that you have to go roll off because it's like, I got to get to work in 15 minutes. This piece of shit's dying on me. Oh. Ugh, man.
That's a classic New York attitude.
That does happen, actually. Like, I remember one time, because I was doing work. Man, this is a wild story. Not too wild, though. But because it's like, oh, yeah, Subway, anything can happen. But I just remember I was working at my dad's company, or the company he works for, that is, in, like, the warehouse. It was like a summer job in college and everything to just kind of make some extra scratch. But I would have to take, like, the A train all the way from, like, I would take a shuttle from, like I think Jersey City or whatever, and then I'd take the A train and, like, crash at my dad's place in the Bronx, whatever. And it was, like, 1 in the morning or something like that. It was, like, really late, and it was just like, oh, my God, I just want to get home. And then literally, like, the train just stopped because it was, like, there was this lady to shout, like, excuse me, this gentleman over here, he has passed out and he has left his daughter unattended. We need help and everything. And it's like, that's just terrible. It's a terrible situation. But it's like, I really did have that New Yorker moment of like, oh, great, here we go. I just want to get home. And it's like, but it's like, no, it's like, this is terrible. Something's happened to this man and like he's passed out with his daughter. I don't know. It's like terrible, but it is. New York can make you evil a little bit.
Yeah, I think being around any large amount of people, it can.
Yeah, you just kind of like loot. You just get that like dead-eyed, like kind of like I gotta just go from point A to point B, and I gotta walk around all kinds of shit, be it animal or human,
Yeah. I think the like homelessness definitely takes you by surprise too when you first get around it. When I first moved to LA, I felt that way.
Yeah.
You're like, oh man, like, are you okay? Do you need help? And then you realize there's like thousands of them everywhere. You're like, oh, never mind.
Yeah, it's an apathetic view of it, but it's like also there's only really so much you could do. I mean, I just remember that too as a high school kid, just being like very sad, and it's like, how can I help this guy? And I'd give money all the time too, just being like, oh yeah, absolutely. And then eventually it's like, okay, only so much I could do. There's got to be some sort of legislation we can pass or something. I don't know. It was like, it's very
something better.
There's got to be something. I can't just keep doing it. Like, I don't know. Some sort of reform needs to go. People need houses. God damn it. Whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, I gave a guy money in LA. He was eating out of the trash.
Yeah.
And I gave him $5. I was like, hey, look. I was like, this is enough for you to get food at McDonald's. And he just took the money and then went right back to eating trash.
Yeah.
I was like, that's okay. That's beyond what I am capable of doing for you.
It's tough. It is tough. That's city living, though. What are you going to do?
Yeah. It's unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
Had you been to Massachusetts before you came here for college?
Not really. I mean, I had one time dropped off a family friend. Like, we kind of flew in after taking a family vacation to Europe. We kind of flew in together to Boston, like to Logan, to drop off this family friend and then drive back down to New York and stuff. And that was like my first, and I think it was like 10 or something. But it was like no impression. You know what I mean? It was like, it literally like left no impression. And then, I mean, because it was just like, it was at night and it was like kind of like, oh, all right, wow, this is Boston. Okay, whatever. And then like, years later, I mean, I would do like a summer camp thing. I forget which. It was like a Western Mass summer camp, like called SoCappa or something like that.
Sounds like a fraternity.
A little bit, yeah. But it was like for like aspiring little film students and everything. It was a little film camp for. Yeah.
Film camp.
Yeah. It was kind of fun.
How long was it?
It was like it was the entirety of the summer. It was like a month or two, and it was a lot of fun.
And how old were you when you did that?
I was in middle school, I think. Yeah, like 12, like 13 or something like that. I don't know.
Can you remember like any of the subject? Like, did you do like a short or like a
they had us
sketch or anything? Or?
They had us making movies and everything. There was a lot of like simple stuff. It was a lot of like, oh, okay. So for this week's assignment, we're gonna have you tell a story where you can't cut everywhere. Like it's one shot. You got to set up the shot. And then you got to like tell an entire story just that with that one frame. You can't be cutting around to like different scenes or whatever. And it was stuff like that. And then like the next week, it was like, okay, we want you to do this, and this. You have to work on a script with like your other friends and blah blah blah. And then like you got to work on a 10-minute feature now where you can cut around and do all this other junk. And it's like, and it as you. Every year it's like the higher your grade got, you know what I mean? Like when you got older, it was like, okay, then you could do the more complex stuff, and it was like, no, it was really cool. I learned a lot about like collaboration and filmmaking and all that, and it was like, oh, I love doing it. And then it was, it was one of those where it was like I kind of realized like, oh, I just want to work in the arts, and like be an illustrator or whatever, because it was like I did still want to be a director, but then I think it was like then the next summer that I like interned on, and this is true, I interned on Rescue Me. Remember that Dennis Leary TV show?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'd spent a summer. We had a family friend who was in charge of locations. Like he was the main locations guy for it, and it was like, hey, have him intern with me for over the summer, and like. It was basically just floating around to like all the different departments of the production. So it was like I was doing locations, and then I was like talking with like the extras, and like then going over to like what was it? Like the lighting guys and doing like the electrician stuff. And it was like kind of like it was, and then like I'd sit behind the monitor with the director and watch him do his thing, and like Dennis Leary was there, and like all this stuff, and it was like I learned a lot, and it was like. It kind of like scared me off a little bit from it because it was like adjunct chaos meets like boredom. Like that's the thing about like film production and all that. That's like, oh yeah, there's just like it's equal parts like, okay, a pressure cooker, we got to get this done. It needs to get done by today, blah blah blah. And that, but then it's like equal parts like we gotta wait around. We gotta get the setup again. We got to do this. So everyone just hold. You're going to hold, but we really got to hurry up, but hold. And like, so you're battling like stress and boredom.
That sounds exactly like the military.
Yeah.
The saying in the military is hurry up and wait.
Yeah. That's the thing. You don't get paid to act. You get paid to wait. That's what they say I don't know. I think I digress. Went all the way out. Just to come back to say like, yeah, I did that whole summer camp thing in Massachusetts. Didn't really leave an impression. And then I moved up here for college. The Montserrat College of Art. Moved up here, and then, I just stuck around ever since. And was like, oh, I love New England.
So, sweet little Will, finished high school, and you're on your way off to college. How did you decide on Montserrat?
There wasn't really a lot of deciding. It was one of those where I had applied to all these big art schools. My grades weren't really the best because I was, in that thing of like, why do I gotta focus on like reading and writing and all this other bullshit? I just want to draw. Like I'm drawing all the time. I'm an artist. Right? Blah blah blah. So I never really engaged with school as much as I probably should have, and would have been fine. Yeah. So my grades were like keeping me out of all these other art schools, but then my teacher had entered me into like this just art competition, and like I had won a scholarship to Montserrat, and I was like, oh wow, that's wild, holy shit!
Wow, that's awesome, congratulations.
Yeah. It wasn't a full ride, but it was like kind of like it really helped, and it was like one of those where it was like, oh okay. Well, that kind of clears up the whatever. I'll move up there, and it was like, oh, I've never really. Yeah, I don't know. It was like kind of like, oh, I'm going to be next to Salem? That's wild. There was all this stuff with it that it was like, oh, this seems kind of cool. And I moved up here, and it was kind of exciting. And I was like, oh, yeah. And then I just kind of like fell in. I mean, it was kind of it, like I moved up here, and the plan was always kind of like, well, I'm going to, be reasonable, move up here, kind of do school, move back home, and get a job, start looking for art opportunities in New York or whatever, and blah, blah, blah. But I'll stay with my folks home, save some money, what have you. But what ended up happening was like I had an opportunity to kind of stick around, like a day job already. Then I was like, why move home? I've got an apartment, I got roommates. I might as well just stay up here. And I was like, okay. And like literally, that was back in 2014, and a decade later, I'm still here.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love when people come here and are really happy and find it to be a good home for them, a good fit.
Yeah, there's a certain energy to it too. And I mean, like, especially where I live in Beverly, it is kind of like the best of both worlds in that, like, I live in the downtown area, so it's like everything's kind of walkable like the city. Like, it's kind of like a mini city, like, like, oh, okay, everything's in walking distance, which is kind of nice. But then you drive a little bit, and it's like, oh, there's some parks and suburbs and stuff like that. It's kind of, I don't know. It's like the best of both worlds, at least in my head, where it's like, it's not too congested, but also enough of a city that it's like, oh, okay, I can walk over to the liquor store or the whatever and like grab something, and it's like, boom.
Yeah, I feel that way too. When I lived out in Los Angeles, I lived on the west side. Like I lived in Venice, like by the beach.
Oh yeah.
And so I felt like at home there. I was like, oh, I could stay here forever.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's too expensive. Maybe someday, but
that's the problem with LA. I mean, I love it too. It's like a great place to visit, but it's like I'd have to be like making a crazy amount of money to live there comfortably. Like I'd be like, anytime I'd visit, it would be like crashing at like my buddy's place. What was it, Max? He's like, but he was like a Hollywood agent, so like literally like he but even he like he was an agent for like I can't really remember like which agency. It was a big one though, and he just like. Well, what's the word? Like, he still had to, like, share his apartment with a roommate and stuff, and it was still a big apartment in West Hollywood, but still, it was like...
Still sharing.
Yeah.
That's tough.
Yeah, it was a nice place, though, I gotta say. That was back in 2018. It was a different world.
What is the curriculum like, or I guess you said you were at a bachelor's in fine arts, right?
Yeah, I got my BFA in illustration.
What are the different options at Montserrat, and what did your curriculum look like?
Well, I was always going to go into illustration. Like, that was always the plan. But it's like Montserrat did offer, like, a lot of painting courses, a lot of animation stuff. Like, they kind of cover the bases as far as, like, commercial arts are concerned. So it's like, you go in there, you could get a graphic design degree and, like, in, like, illustration degree, they do require you to take, like, graphic design courses or animation courses and things like that. But... they call it like concentrations over majors, even though I still consider like, oh yeah, my major was illustration, but it was one of those nice loosey-goosey things in that like, hey, you can, as long as you're filling out the credits for your illustration, major, there's nothing stopping you from taking a sculpting class or a printmaking class or a photography class. So you could do all these extra whatevers and everything as long as it fit into your schedule and stuff. And I tried my best to jam pack it with just like all the illustration stuff, but there's a couple times where it was like, ooh, I wish I took that printmaking class or something like that. But it was still a nice chill environment.
Do you feel that it helped with your artistic creativity and like showing you like a way how to like channel your art, or do you feel like do you feel like it helped improve your drawing and your art and all?
I mean, like when you go to art school already, they'll have you just being, they'll have you take the fundamental, like your first year essentially is like, okay, so like let's see where your drawing skills are, and then it's like they'll have you do drawing 1 and then painting 1, and it's all these like kind of like these are the materials, let's get you used to them, and then like blah blah blah. Like, okay, so you can draw this well. Let's see if let's pump those up and have them render out. And I was like, I was already excelling at that sort of thing. I think it's like the thing with it was like, okay, just the more practice I got, the better I got. I think the concentration stuff of it all, or at least the part that was like difficult for me to find, was like, okay, I have these skills, but what am I doing with them? Like, because, back then it was like, oh, you know where I should go? I should be doing like video game art or something like that, because that's where the money is right now. This is back in like 2011 or whatever, and it was like, oh yeah, that's where the real money is. You can make, be like a concept artist for, Bungie or like Ubisoft or like whatever, like, or or an indie company, and like you could do all this stuff. And it was kind of like interested and focused on that. And then eventually I got kind of burnt out on like, oh, okay, I'm never going to like, they're looking for specifically X, Y, and Z in my portfolio. And it's like, I really don't like drawing that stuff. I'm more into like doing like, I guess essentially like comic stuff, and like more, like making posters and stuff, so that's kind of like essentially where I just sort of pivoted and was like, oh, you know what, I should be doing like more pen and ink and like painting and like less digital stuff, maybe like I don't know, but yeah. And then it was like, oh, I should be like a comic book guy or what have you, like doing that sort of thing, like just being a more, I guess like I remember like my senior professor, like the guy who was in charge of like the whole department, was kind of like, hey, you're kind of a generalist. You could just go anywhere with this stuff, which is like kind of like what I am and what I feel like, where I'm like, oh yeah, I'm like, generally I have the stuff that I make, like I have subject matters I like, but it is also like, what do you need me to do? I can do it. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you need a pet portrait? Sure. Like you want like a family portrait? Whatever. You want me to draw like a
fangs?
Yeah, exactly. I could do that. Like I could draw whatever you want of me, but my personal stuff / the stuff that I advertise a lot of times is like, oh yeah, like I'm drawing a monster. I don't know. Do monsters, creatures.
This is what's inside my head.
Sci-fi stuff. Yeah, I don't know.
I took commercial arts in high school. I went to a technical high school, and I went to the technical high school because I had family in the carpentry and like automotive fields, and I was not interested in academics, just like you were saying. And I was like, oh, a tech school is only half academics. You do 1 week of your shop, 1 week of schoolwork. I was like, I'm into this. I don't care what I do. And I didn't like the auto and carpentry stuff. And I had a friend who was in commercial arts. And it was all girls. There was like 5 girls and then my friend. There was I only had 90 kids in my graduating class. We were a small school.
Yeah. Well, you went to the same school that my wife Deanna went to.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And I took this course, and everybody else was really good at drawing. They were all really good at art. And one thing that I didn't realize until like I was like an adult, and I felt really stupid when I realized this, like they all drew their whole lives. They all practiced, like you said, when you were a kid, you were doodling and everything.
Yeah.
I could draw like stick figures, but I never tried any like still life or portraits or perspectives or even like drawing like comics with like proportions. If you make the arm and the head and stuff, I never had any awareness of that. So I sucked, and it would piss me off that they were all good, and I thought that I was bad and they were good. I didn't realize that there was a whole like practice behind it.
That's truly what it is. End of the day, it's like it's been like so long as a kid, especially just drawing out of my head, that eventually when you do the course, it, like you take enough of like a life drawing course, and it's like you learn anatomy. Then it's like, oh, okay, now I can take from that and put blah blah blah.
Can I tell you what saved me? This is what motivated me to keep going through this course, though.
What's that?
The beginning of my sophomore year, our very first project was a contest. So in Massachusetts, it's called the Massachusetts Anti-Defamation League, which is like diversity or something. It's like anti-discrimination, right?
Right.
And the theme was like inclusiveness, discrimination, and whatnot. And it was any medium. And so this girl that was a really good painter, she painted. My friend did some kind of a pen and ink. There was a girl who was really good at digital art. She could draw on with the stylus. She could draw in like Illustrator and make really nice things.
Oh yeah.
But she was kind of on the darker side, so she said her art was kind of creepy. And I can't remember the details, but she drew somebody like in a bird cage.
Oh, okay.
And I just remember thinking that it was like a little scary because the idea was it was for a calendar. And so I was trying to think, like, what can I do? And what carried me through this was what carries me through everything. I've always been able to be funny and relatable.
Right.
So for mine, I took a picture of rocks in a garden. And it was just like a nice photo of these 4 like medium-sized rocks in front of some flowers. And then I put little word bubbles in Photoshop, and I had them saying hello in different languages. I had like hello, hola, bonjour, and then some like Japanese text. And the caption, diversity rocks.
Oh, that's kind of sweet. I love that, actually.
And I won.
Oh, you won?
I won
oh, wow.
a month in the calendar.
Hey, you know what? Not bad. That's like, I mean, like, hey, you got photography working there. That, you know, people are also high on that. And you ever see that Andy Goldworthy and everything? That guy, he's a photographer. He just stacks rocks in the woods. That's all he does.
Oh, yeah.
Andy Goldworthy and everything. That's
Wow.
all he does. It's just like, look at this.
And it's some beautiful art.
People love that shit. I'm like, oh, yeah.
You get some kind of feeling from it.
He probably is a millionaire based off just all the coffee books that you see of that. And it's just kind of like, ooh, I'm an art. I appreciate the arts. Look at how many rocks he stacked and took a nice black and white photo of it. Isn't that nice? But yeah, I don't know. That's just a better design. Like, let's be honest, actually. You know, like I don't know. I think that's like one of those where it's like some people do get caught up in like, oh, it doesn't like, you know, I spent so much time rendering. I remember that. That's such an art school thing too, where it's just like I spent so much time rendering this thing out, and like I worked on the anatomy and blah blah blah, and some people would just bring in like just simple things, and it was like, oh, the teachers be like, that's perfect, you nailed the assignment, like you didn't have to like add all this stuff. It's like brilliant, boom, you know, I remember those days.
Happy to have him behind you.
Yeah, I did like art school. It was a little bit of that thing though of like, you know, when you go from, anytime you go from like, oh, I'm the top drawer from my like high school, to then being like, oh, all these people were the top drawers too. There's the competition now. Oh, okay, I got to be the best one out of these guys. You know, there was a little bit of that, and then eventually I mellowed out, and it was just kind of like, oh, okay, right, we're all just working to have careers. Why am I like, you know? But you know, I think like healthy competition definitely breeds like, you know, some kind of like driving force of like, I gotta have the best one. I gotta push this illustration. I gotta boom, boom, boom. Because then ultimately, I don't know, if you make a good enough, like those assignments and everything, if they were good enough, you could walk away with like a portfolio piece that you could like be like, hey, this is what I do. And then people are like, oh, cool. You know, I'll hire you out. So I don't know. It was, I'd sort of miss it. But then again, I'm always around the school anyway. Like I'm still staying in my like college apartment essentially, you know, so it's like I'm just, you know, I'm always talking to the teachers, and I do a lot of work with them now too. I'd like over the summer I was part of their mentorship program, so I had a Montserrat student like working under me for a couple months and everything, and we just like were working up projects together. So
Did you have to feed him and house him too?
Thankfully not. No.
Adopt an art kid.
No, I wish. No, I don't wish at all. They would give me that responsibility. No, thankfully, they would show up like once a week in my studio and review what they had worked on, and then like kind of like okay, so
erase their name and put yours next to it. And then...
Oh well, well, okay.
Just kidding.
I'm trying to bolster creativity and get the youth working and everything, okay? You know, it's the problem. People just want to hoard all the wealth at the top and everything. I'm not about that. I'm about spreading it out.
Yeah.
I like a tight spread.
Yeah, we're all about spreading it out.
Spread that wealth, America. This is good water.
It is surprisingly good water.
It's good.
Yeah, there's something, I don't know, it's just different.
Yeah, Deanna really wants to work with these guys. I think she's like talking to the head creative director right now.
Wow, that's awesome.
I know. I really hope she gets it.
They're a $1 billion company.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah, it's quite an inspiring story to just think of some, you know, it's just one of those, it's a classic American story of somebody was like, there's no water in a can. Let's try it out.
Yeah.
And then the marketing just made it happen, and then boom, their valuation was in the
No, it's true.
billies.
It's I mean, and it's also like in this day and age when like so many environmentally, people are like, we got to get away from plastic, I remember I grew up a little bit like hearing that, just like bottled water is destroying the planet, and it's just like these guys are just kind of capitalizing on that a little bit, like, oh yeah, no, it's canned, so it's better for the environment. And everyone's like, all right, I'll buy that. Okay, that's $1 billion company idea. I'm Mark Human.
It's kind of funny to think that they're in the same status of like Bill Gates.
Yeah.
And other people that have like come up with vaccines and created programs and computers, and they're all in their super elite club, probably in like another planet. And he's just like, I created water in a can.
There's so many, like, you obviously watch Shark Tank, right?
Oh yeah.
I fucking love Shark Tank. Shark Tank is my favorite reality TV show. That's a fact, next to Face Off, but that's neither here nor there. I love Shark Tank so much because it really is that thing of like, there's like the ring light guy. Remember that one? That one is like shocking, actually, where it's like the guy who came up with the idea of like, well, why not just put a camera in front of your house and everything, and it's just like you have it linked up to an app, and they all passed on it, which was so nuts. And then he came back, and I forget which season,
with a vengeance,
as a billionaire. He literally had $1 billion idea, and it was like kind of like, hey guys, now I'm a shark.
Turns out you don't know anything.
Yeah, Mr. Wonderful. He's actually not that wonderful.
So where in all of your experiences, you're what, 32 now? 33? 34?
I'm 25.
All right. In your 25 years of life and experience.
Exactly. I'm very young.
When did you first get on stage to
I'm
do stand-up?
21 years old now.
When did you first get on stage?
Around when I was 33. I mean, when I first got on stage, because I am a stand-up.
Say it with such conviction.
Because I am, and I've been doing it for so long and made so much money doing it. Oh man, remember bingo was on Wednesday, 6 p.m., 8 p.m. sharp, free to play. God, dude, I started around 2017 or something like that.
Well, it's awesome.
So
we started right around the same time.
Basically,
so when we met, is what you were just starting?
Yeah,
cool.
Oddly enough, actually, that was like, because it was like, I was 27 maybe, or I was a little older than a lot of other people who were starting at that time, I guess. But it was always kind of funny. I was always like, oh, I have ideas for like sets and stuff, and then I just kind of like, I literally went to the open mic at the Indo.
Yeah.
Which was not really an open mic.
That was for music.
It was for music open mic, and I was like...
We would take it over.
Yeah, I know. Well, at least trying to.
Yeah.
Because I was like, this is the one comedy guy, like, or at least until... like, I know you did it. Like, when did you go over and do the Indo?
2017.
Oh, my God. Yeah. Yeah, no, because it was like, oh, okay.
Go ahead, yeah.
It was like, oh, okay, there's an open mic. Oh, I don't really know where else you do this, so I tried it out there. And I got a couple laughs, and I was like, oh, I should keep doing this every week. This is kind of fun, And then I got more laughs, and I kept on doing. And then, like, eventually Deanna was like, hey, I have a friend who, like, books shows and everything. I'll ask him to, like, throw you on and, like, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, oh, thank you. And then, like, from there, it was like, I met Riley Knips, who was doing all kinds of shows up in Gloucester and Salem at the time.
Music, right? Was he doing comedy?
He was doing comedy and music, actually. Like, a lot of his... I miss those days, because it was like... He would do those Kodo shows.
Those were the days. That's where I met Nick and first got into...
Exactly.
I met Angela Sawyer and then Nick.
Yeah. Literally, I met everybody from those Kodo shows, where it was like... Especially Nick. Nick was like... I did a set there for... I forget which show, but it was like one of these Riley shows where he would set it up where it was like... You had all these comedians, and then the show would end with the band and everything.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just like, I wish they'd bring that back. That was just such a smart, like, kind of like, oh, yeah. And it was like, usually, like, it was either his band. What's the name of his band again? I feel
can't
bad.
Remember, dude. That was years.
They would do Hot Soda.
Yeah, oh, that's so funny.
Yeah, Soda.
They were a funny band.
I completely forgot the name of it, though. But it was like, I love all those dudes. I think they're still bopping around, and I think he's still bopping around in Gloucester doing music stuff, and sort of setting up whatever. But I miss you, Riley. Come back. Riley, come back.
We'll get him out there.
Riley, come back.
See if we can get him on the pod.
Get him on the pod.
Get him on the pod.
To the bottom of nothing.
Hell yeah.
He should be here right now. Let's get to the bottom of why he's not here.
Yeah, it'll be interesting when I increase the setup and we can do 4.
Yeah. And like I start getting accusatory. You gotta have if you want this to be any kind of successful pot, you gotta have just some sort of drama and everything, some sort of fight go down. Where it's like, get Riley on here. Maybe we'll have a fight, or maybe not. Maybe we'll just like be like, I miss you too. But yeah, that's where I met Nick. That's where I met basically everybody in the Jed scene. We're kind of coming to those Kodo shows for the most part, or at least it was like kind of like Nick was going to Boston and like, but he was in the area, so it was like, yeah. And then and that's where I met you. It was like through Nick, and we would just drive in together to the the Middle East.
Yeah.
And then it was from Jed, and then it was Jed's, and then basically we're here.
Yeah. Jed's was probably one of the funnest places on the planet.
Yeah.
So that's also kind of like the inspiration to kind of emulate just having a place where comics can be together.
Yeah, it's one of those where it was like, an incredible basement show, the likes of which I'll never forget. It's just burnt in my synapses of like all the times just hanging out in that basement that I'm pretty sure has taken at least 5 years off our lives. Just hanging out. There was just like stuff hanging from the ceiling that I was like, that looked like black mold.
Yeah, some asbestos. Some,
man, it was like
old building
nuts. I think about that sometimes. Just literally like every week we just go there poisoning ourselves.
And so many people, and the people live there. That's what's so funny about some of these Boston shows that are in like apartments and houses and basements.
Yeah, man, that's that Austin scene in general. Is just like these dungy ass basements, but it's like you love it because you're just gonna see something you're never gonna see anywhere else and stuff. And I'm like, I loved it back in the day. Now I'm like, I love a good basement show, but sometimes I'm like a little like, okay, I can't really hang out. I don't have the stamina to hang out in a basement all night again.
Yeah, it was such a young crowd too, if you think about it.
Yeah.
Like younger, I guess, compared to now.
Right. I was in my like mid-20s, so like it was like kind of like the prime, like, oh yeah, I'm like down to like just drink until like 2 a.m. and just get an Uber back and like kind of yeah.
Yeah, and just do nonsense on stage too.
Exactly, where you just go like up there like like, oh shit, I've just been smoking weed this whole time and I gotta be on stage now, and like you do your set and it's just like terrible, and then like, oh okay. But like 3 people are there and they're laughing their asses off, and it's like, oh okay.
Yeah, it was a magical time. They even did like a fake show for the police.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wild. Like there was, the fire marshal catches wind of some kind of illegal show or whatever, and then they did like a random drop in, and they were like, it just happened to be like a night that there was maybe like 10 people there or something.
Oh, it was so cool. It was really kind of magical, to the point that, like eventually we did have our own kind of like home show at my apartment, like, which was kind of a Jed's Light because it wasn't in our basement. It wasn't just a spare bedroom. It was fun. It was like one of those where it was like when we did this, me and Jay did the Studio of Madness, and it was like, oh yeah. Special.
Your guys' open mic was like that too. It had that energy.
We tried to. At the very least, it was like, okay. Like, we kind of always knew it was going to be like a hollow, not a hollow, but like, what's that expression? Where it's like, not, it was going to.
I don't know it.
Yeah, I have like, look up that expression on YouTube. Come on.
All right.
No, I'm joking. No.
Hollow?
No, like what's the,
trying to think of a hollow expression.
No, it's like it like pales in comparison. There you go. It's like kind of like it would never. It's never gonna be as wild and insane. But like,
okay,
we tried our best. We definitely like kind of were like, oh okay, this is gonna be really alternative, and we packed it out. It was like kind of like we could never have Jed's numbers, but it was like we had like 40 people in like my apartment at one time. Like in like one room. Great. It was nuts, man.
When did the character development come onto the scene?
Oh, that was like Studio Madness days too. I feel like, even a little bit back at Jed's and everything too. Especially when like, oh God No was like doing shows and it'd be like, hey Will, we want you to play like this, and it was like, okay, cool. like they'd be hitting me up to do character stuff, and then with Studio Madness, like every week, me and Jay would like run like the host the mic as like new character. You know, it was like because the first couple of times it was just like, hey, it's me, Will. This is Jay. This is Studio Madness. Blah 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 blah. And then eventually we're like, well, that's boring. Let's like have some fun with that. So then we just started making up characters, and it was like, oh, okay, this week I'm a Miami or like I'm a like a nightclub promoter and everything, Mr. Miami, and then like all these other weird characters and stuff that we just would come up with, and then it was like, you know, I mean, eventually from there, I mean, well, come to think of it, like I kind of went away from doing character stuff for the most part because of the pandemic. Then again, I went away from comedy and everything at that point, and then I think when we were all getting back into it, and I was just reading over jokes and doing like, okay, I'm going to do this set again. I know that works. I'll do this set, blah, blah, blah. And then like doing the characters. That I think it just was that thing of, oh, you know what was a lot of fun when I was hosting shows as a character? Why don't I just do that as a set? Like, why don't I just go up there? And then especially like at Hollowed Ground and like, you know, Off Cabot, just coming back to those, it was like, okay, I'm just going to straight up just do a character because it's like I'm having more fun doing this instead of just like, yeah, you know, it's wild how you know, Biden shot down that Chinese balloon. You remember that? Yeah. Oh, you seen this in the news? That's topical. Yeah. I don't know. I just felt creatively less locked in, and like I feel like I could catch people more off guard, which is always a thing where you like you want to surprise people in comedy. You know?
Yeah,
That's
absolutely. Yeah, and you do it too, man. You have a phenomenal character development. I don't know what the word is, but like you become them for sure.
Yeah,
you
I have like a rogues gallery of just like characters that I'll just whip out for shows now, which is fun, you know, and it's what keeps me in it. And like even though I hate improv people, but I do love improv. There's like a weird, you know.
Yeah. Well, I guess you're also good at it. You know,
that's the thing. Where I'm like,
you can like something and be bad at it.
That's true. That's true.
And then people don't. I mean, it's not why people like or don't like you, but I would say that there are definitely people on that side of like the comedy world that are like less. I would want to be around less.
Yeah.
I wouldn't consider myself like that, like improv or anything.
I mean. I like. There's people like I like, you know, that I've engaged with. I think it's just like the connotation, or at least what I remember. It was like, I think it was like when we were doing like the People Show at like Boston Improv or Improv Asylum. I forget which one. I think it might have been Boston Improv. Because there's the one that's not there anymore. I think it's Boston Improv, right? Yeah, that's the one I remember. Like whenever we do the People Show, it was always like the comics and the improv people like would sit in the green room, and they were like on the either side, and they were just like look at each other like, you know, like cats and you know what I mean. They just there's like, you know, they were just two different worlds.
Where have you traveled to? You've been outside the United States?
Yeah, I'm not a world traveler, but I've been to you know, quite a few places actually internationally. I've been a big chunk of Europe.
That's the world, Will.
I guess that is the world.
You've been out there.
I've been out there. You know, I mean, I've been to, let's see here, Spain, France, Ireland, Iceland. Never been to England, though, which is kind of a bummer. Mexico. I guess that's it.
It's a pretty good hit.
Yeah, pretty good. I mean.
What, did you do Europe all at once, or did you go several different trips?
Went several different family trips.
Do you have family over there?
Yeah, we had a family friend who lived in Ireland. So it was like, we'd always like go over to their place and stuff and like stay with them. They had a very well off, you know, family. So they had like this mansion in this like Irish hillside town called Glondor. And man, it was beautiful. I loved Ireland. Do
you know what part of Ireland? Glondor, I don't know. It's not familiar to me.
Glondor, it's kind of like, it's the south. It's really... if I had to like gauge it out, it's like an hour and some change from like Galway, or like several hours away from Dublin, you know, kind of place. You know, Ireland's pretty small, but you know, it's still kind of like, you know, takes a little while to get.
Yeah, they say it's about the size of Maine.
Yeah.
And it takes like 8-ish hours to get from north to south.
Yeah, you know what? And that's the thing. It's like, it's like the same distance between, like, I don't know, Portland and Bangor, if that makes any sense. Or it's like, okay, It's interesting this is the size of Maine. Now it really puts everything in perspective. Well.
How old were you when you were in Europe?
Let's see. Ireland, I was going there most of my, like I was like 8 or like 9, and then like I went back like when it was like 11, 12, and then again like when it was like I think 16, 17. It was such a vacation spot for my family going to Ireland.
Yeah.
And then France was like when I was like 16, 17.
Did you smoke a cigarette there on like a long filter?
No, I wish. I mean, we were definitely 17, 18. I remember this because like me and my stepsister, because we went with like our blended family, with like my mom, stepsister, brother, stepfather, and like we all like just had a great time, But it was like me and Rachel, we were just like having a great time, just going to the bar, being like, oh wow, we could drink here legally. This is awesome, like So I think we were too high on that to like kind of enjoy the normal Parisian experiences of like smoking a cigarette, wearing a beret, having a baguette.
Miming?
No mimes, didn't mime, but it did hit the Louvre. That was cool.
Did you see the Mona Lisa?
I did actually, behind just hundreds of like tourists and everything.
All stacked up there.
Just yeah. All these like tiny Japanese people just being like, oh wow, look at that small painting, And I was like behind them being like, wow, that is a small painting. It looks smaller back here. Yeah, it's kind of funny about that with the Mona Lisa, but I got to see it. Got to see it's like one of those where it's like, oh, the Mona Lisa maybe is the most famous painting there or whatever, but then it's like, oh, wait, no, they also have like hundreds of other just incredible pieces of art, including like the Venus de Milo, which is like, wow, look at that thing. Which is like, if you don't know, it's the one where it's like the armless Venus and everything, and it's like, I don't know, it's pretty cool.
Let's see if I can find it.
Oh, yeah, look it up.
Venus de Milo?
The Venus del Milo. I'm not sure if I'm nailing the pronunciation, but it's Venus de Milo.
Oh, it's the statue.
It's the statue. Yeah, look, yeah. Got to see that in person. That was cool.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah.
She got nice boobs.
Yeah, they made them nice back then.
Nice bust.
Yeah. It was actually a full statue, not a bust, but yeah.
Okay.
What do you mean? Okay?
I don't know. Is that art? So, I meant like the bust, like her bust, right? Isn't that what they call boobs?
But that's not a bust. That is a full statue. A bust is like, okay. Just, I understand you didn't go to art school, but just, can you appreciate, all right,
Yes.
this guy? Man, that was a fun trip, though. I mean, I love France. And then we did Spain. That was actually like
The way you said it would make it sound less fun.
Well, no, it was like because I was it
Tired of Europe at that point.
Well, I don't know. I mean, that one was like an interesting one because it was like first time taking Deanna with us too. So that was the first time for her she'd ever been international. And then it was just like kind of like, I was also broke. So it was like one of those trips where it was like, oh, great. Okay, I'm going to.
You're also thinking about somebody else now too, right?
What's that?
You're thinking about somebody else now too. You got to keep Deanna in mind.
Yeah. I mean, we were both kind of broke. And then it was just like my mom too was just like kind of like, why can't we eat at this restaurant? And I was like, all right, I got to.
Because we flew to Europe.
Yeah, and I'm like, I don't really have that much. I'm in between jobs right now, Mom, and blah, blah, blah. I mean, which is the struggle of like any kind of working artist / comedian. It feels like you have to have several hats to be worn, where I'm like, oh yeah, I'm hosting bingo, doing commissions, and then sometimes getting paid for like shows and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of like the grind.
That's kind of what this is, my hat.
Yeah.
Trying to see how this one feels.
Several hats, having another day job too, where I'm like, okay,
Yeah, the grind continues.
Grind set, that's the thing.
When I was in Amsterdam, I went to the Picasso Museum.
Oh, nice.
And they didn't have Starry Nights.
Mm.
And I asked, when I walked in, like, that's the first thing I asked, like, at the front desk. I was like, hey, where's Starry Nights at? And they were like, Oh, it's on tour. It's actually in New York right now.
I was also gonna say like that's a Van Gogh painting.
That's what I meant then. I'm sorry. Remember, I didn't go to art school. They're kind of.
No, I get you.
I won't say they're the same because I don't want you to attack me, but
no,
they're in the same category in my head.
Yeah, I get you. I mean, they weren't really contemporary. No. It's okay. No, that's fine. I mean, like,
Thank you for reminding me.
Oh, I'm sorry. I did get a fun story. My minor was art history, so I'm well versed in the history of art, as it were. And
where did art start?
Several thousand years ago, and this is true. It was in the Germanic kind of era. Everyone points to like the Neolithic kind of like depiction of a pregnant woman and everything. A lot of people call it like a fertility god, but it's the Venus of Willendorf, actually, which is where it was found in Willendorf, Germany, and it's very famously. It's just a giant lady. Statue with big. You can look it up.
This is different than the other one.
Yeah. This is a different Venus. And this is like I said, Neolithic. So it's like ancient. Yeah, it's one of those where it's like the beginnings of like society and stuff. You're looking at it right now, aren't you?
Yeah, this is impressive. She had some curves too. Oh man,
like I said, fertility god. So it's like back then when you're being chased by saber-toothed tigers. Yeah, and everybody, like the most appealing thing to, I think, most red-blooded cavemen was like
some junk in the trunk.
Exactly, big old pregnant lady, because that means more hunters. Yeah. That's technically one of the oldest pieces of artwork. It's tiny. It's about this big.
That's impressive.
Yeah. It was the beginning. It was truly the beginning. Yeah, now we're here, and now
still drawing naked women.
Still drawing naked women, which is cool.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, but no, I actually saw Starry Night as a kid because that's at the MoMA. That's been like as long as I remember, actually. Like it's always had like Starry Night there.
Yeah, I think they said that it wasn't at the Van Gogh Museum as well. But I do remember him saying it was on tour. I don't know, but
they do tour it around. Yeah, I also do remember like kind of. Yeah, I was just kind of wild because I also remember that as a kid too, being in disbelief, being like, "Is that the one? Is that really like it?" You know what I mean? Like for all of us here, I don't know. That's like that weird thing where it's just like, why would they just leave it out here? You know what I mean? Right? Because it's like, who's stopping like some guy? I remember that too. Like in art school, like just people would just go up to paintings and just like like oil paintings too, and just start like. Touching it, and it's just like, and you're like kind of like, where's the gallery attendant? And it's like kind of like, I don't know.
Did you ever interact with the free wall?
The free wall in Beverly?
Yeah, when you can legally spray paint.
I never did actually. Even though it's like you think like, oh, I would totally. I think it's like, I was never really good at it. You know what I mean? Like I was like, I never really practiced with spray paint, to be honest. That was one of those where it's like, because. First off, you need a mask. You need a really good mask and stuff, and I have an okay one. And then second, just never really had the time to kind of... Because some people do, like, the whole, like, angling, like, and they could just do all this shit, and I just never really, because my medium's always just, like, kind of pen and ink and stuff like that, like, paints in a studio,
You weren't as malicious? You didn't want to, like, do street art?
I wasn't opposed to it, but also it just was, like... I didn't really see the point. I was like, kind of like, oh, okay, then it's just kind of like, I don't know. Because I'm very pragmatic where it's just like, I know anything that I put on this wall because I have no practice will not look good. And I don't want to have that reflect on me as an artist.
I see.
So I'm not going to do it at all.
I would go over there and spray paint penises on the wall.
Yeah, you know what?
Just over other people's art.
Kind of come to think of it. That's also just an option. I could have always just drawn a dick. I didn't think about that. What have I done with my life?
You're living it, man.
I guess, but I'm just in now just utter regret that I just never even thought to draw like a big floppy cock on like any of that,
Still can.
I guess I could. I'm old though.
Yeah, it's not as exciting.
I'm 33 years old. I mean 27.
It's kind of interesting that the wall's been there for so long that it's thick with paint.
Yeah, it's caked on and stuff. And
Yeah.
it's like, it's truly just such a beautiful, like, I kind of love shit like that.
Me too.
Because speaking like about like international traveling, Will, when I was in Iceland, they have a big thing where it's like, oh yeah, they don't care about like graffiti. So it's like buildings will just like have just murals or even just tags and stuff like that all over, and it's just like it's kind of cool. It didn't like deduct from like the niceness of like Reykjavik either. It was just kind of like, oh, this is really cool. Everyone's kind of expressing themselves and sort of like and it's like you could still go to some wickedly expensive bars and all that. Oh man, I loved Iceland, but it was just like mad expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When did you go there? What year?
It was around 2017, I think. It was like, I think it was 2017. Yeah, there was like the two trips because like 2017 was Iceland and then 2018 was Spain. The last time was international. Slash on a plane. No, that might not be true. Anyway, yeah, like that was it was just me and my dad, and we just kind of like went there because like my dad always wanted to go, and my stepmom and dad like to travel and everything. They're big travelers, but she doesn't really like doing cold places. She's like kind of like I like to go to travel. Bring me to an island. I want to go to an
Take me to
island.
the Bahamas.
Yeah, exactly.
Put me on a golf cart.
Let's go to like Brazil or something. So to sell her on Iceland, she was like, I'm out, and then I'm like, no, I want to go, and we went together, and it was awesome. It was like a great trip, and it was just like we spent a whole week just driving around the whole thing and
it's so close.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing with it. That's the whole rub where it's like I'd love to go back because the plane tickets you get like one of those Spirit.
Yeah. That's how I went too.
Yeah, exactly.
Cheap, quick flight.
$300 or something like that, and then it's just like, oh yeah, you get there, and then it's like the island itself. It's just like it's an island culture technically, so it's like they have to import all this shit, so everything's expensive. Even their delicious Gull beer is like, what was it, like $10 per bottle? I remember that. I was just like, holy shit.
The thing that surprised me, since it's an island, they have to use all their resources. They eat the puffins. It's like their national bird. They're super cute.
Yeah,
they simultaneously catch them in nets and then just bash their brains out.
Yeah, that and like, and you've been there too. So I forgot about that. So did you have any of like that like fermented shark shit?
No, I'm not that adventurous when
I ate that.
Oh,
I did it. Yeah, because you have to do it with like the liquor too and everything. And like me and my dad, last day did that. And it was like almost immediate acid reflux.
Yeah, your stomach's like, we're not supposed to have fermented shark.
This is just not a good. It was like one of those where it's like, I'm kind of glad I did it but at the same time, I was like, wow. I honestly thought it was like, I think the liquor was probably the harder thing, because the fermented shark was like.
Is it fermented shark liquor?
No, because you're supposed to do it in a like like it's like one of those
ceremonial.
Where you take the shark, you eat the shark, and then you have this like liquor to go with it. I forget what this shit was. It was good for like cleaning boats, not consumption. And it's like you had the shark, and then you had the thing, and I was like, Jesus.
Oof. So do you taste the shark?
Yeah, you taste the shark, but shark tasted fine. It was just like okay.
I imagine it's just like kind of fishy.
Yeah.
And
I love fish. So like I had no problem with that. It was just getting down like whatever this like
the drink that came after.
Barnacle cleaner was,
Was there anything in the drink? Was it liquid?
It was just liquid. It was like kind of like maybe some sort of like vodka or something. I don't know. It was the wildest thing. I have to ask my dad what that was exactly, but I just remember like the fermented shark and
in Japan they have it's called Habu Sake, and Habu means snake, and so it's an actual full dead snake in the bottle, and all of the scales come off of it. So when they pour you a shot, it's like pulp, like orange juice, but it's snake scales.
Wow!
And it makes you kind of gag because it's weird. It's like almost like that Goldschlager or something. It's just like feeling that extra sensation in a liquid makes you go like, ugh.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
It wasn't good. That was the same. I remember it just being like, oh, this is a novelty and nobody likes this.
Yeah, like I've done the thing where it's like, oh, look, there's a little scorpion in the tequila, and like you drink out of that, and it's like kind of like, okay, I have no no holdups and everything with that kind of shit because it's like whatever. I don't know. I don't know. It's like are you like above like eating like roaches or anything? Like you ever
Way
see
above
that?
it.
Yeah, way above it.
Way above it.
Never would do it.
Nope.
Okay.
I was I remember when I was in Thailand once, this girl, she was literally eating a bag of crickets. There's like fried seasoned crickets.
Fried seasoned crickets.
And I was like,
I'd fucking do it.
That? And she slapped me. She
Oh,
was like,
really?
She was like, don't be rude. She's like, that's good.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, I'm not eating it.
I would eat it. I would eat it. I mean, like, truly, like, you ever see those things where it's like, because it's like, I get it. It's like, it looks gross, but at the same time, it's like, as soon as you kind of push it out your head, it's, I don't know. When you think about it, it's like, you ever eat shrimp?
I'm actually allergic to shrimp. I ate it once.
Oh, my God. What happened?
I had like, not really like death, but I got like hives and itchy.
Right. You were like, I need to see a doctor.
Yeah. And then I've just kind of steered clear of that whole.
So shellfish in general are out. No shellfish,
no lobster,
so no crab. Yeah,
crab.
Okay.
I guess they're cephalopods. I got a cousin that said that word once.
Cephalopods.
And one of those is crabs, and one is like, because I can eat clams. I can eat like clams and mussels and scallops.
Okay.
So I don't know if those are the cephalopods or if the crabs are the cephalopods. But
yeah, because then the crustacean gets thrown around and everything, where it's like, okay, I thought crustacean was the blanket term for. Lobsters, crabs, whatever. Sea scorpions.
I would agree.
But,
sea scorpions, for sure. I'm definitely allergic to those.
Oh, my God. Yeah, they're terrifying. But no, I mean, like, I guess the scallops and the clams, to my point, where it's like, technically those are bottom feeders. You know what I mean? Technically they eat trash and all this shit, but we're like, oh, okay, no, this is... this is crab. We can eat that. And it's like, I don't know, like you fry up a mealworm or whatever. People say it's like really good. But then again, I think I would eat most things that are fried. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's the thing. That's always the cheat.
Anything fried is good. Right?
Anything fried, it's like kind of like, oh, you put batter on it and like kind of like, okay, yeah. Like you can sell it. You know what I mean? On its own, for sure, I'm not taking a bug and just eating it off the ground. But it's like,
If you had to eat a bug, that's the way to do it.
Yeah.
Because they saute them in like a big wok.
It looks good. Anytime you see those things and people are like, how disgusting. I'm like, I don't know. What those look like nice spices they're putting in there. I don't know.
It's supposed to be good protein.
Yeah.
In Thailand, they had a scorpion on a stick or a tarantula on a stick, so you could eat it. And like the local Thai comics, they would always joke like, "Hey, tourists, like we don't like nobody eats that. Like it's not like a traditional Thai meal. It's just like kind of like a novelty on the street that somebody made up, and then now you guys do it because everybody takes a picture or takes an Instagram photo of them like."
Yeah. I mean, that's like. Any kind of tourist culture, we get that. You see, anytime you're in Salem and you see a bunch of people with the witch hats on, it's just like, all right, tourist. I mean, New York too. Like that was always the thing. That's like when you kind of learn that, like, tourists. Like there's people like crowding around. It's like, oh yeah, you learn like, just never go to Times Square. Never want to go down there. It's like, you go to this place. This is like cool. Yeah.
I went to New York in high school and I stayed with a family friend, and he said that to us. He was like, if you look up too much, you could be a target for like pickpockets.
Yeah.
They see that you're a tourist and you're not paying attention.
Never got pickpocketed in New York, actually. I've been mugged before, but pickpocketed, no. I mean, that's like kind of, yeah, you just like, I mean, because like New York, especially like, by the time like I was growing up there in the 2000s, late 2000s, you know what I mean? It kind of chilled out. It was still dangerous, obviously. And it's like one of those things you learn, like, okay, yes, like you can do whatever, but you also have to be on your, you got to keep a swivel on still, it's like, it's still the city, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you can't,
Where were you when you got mugged?
Oh, I was in the Bronx. It was like, like I said, it was like, it's all this shit that you're not supposed to do. You know what I mean? It's like truly like, okay, 2 a.m, I'm alone. It's just me, like on the subway, listening to an iPod that I have out and everything. Like all the stuff that's like kind of like, I was like in college, like I think it was like my second semester in college. I just wasn't thinking. I was drunk too. So it's like all this shit just kind of like, oh, whatever. I'm just going to like blah, blah, blah. And like these 2 dudes followed me from the subway and like beat me up and tried to take my shit, and then like I kind of managed to get away from them, but so I held on to it, but all my shit. But that said, it was like,
Took a little bit of a beating though.
Yeah, not too bad. I mean, the guy punched me in the head.
Dang. So you had your headphones on, and then you were surprise attacked, or did you see them?
Oh no, it was I mean, truly it was like you ever seen the movie like Halloween or whatever?
Nope.
Oh yeah. Or like any kind of slasher film.
Okay.
It was like one of those where it's like I saw
They had a kitchen knife?
No.
You were in a shower?
Yeah, it was like one of those shower subway carts and everything, they discontinued them because of all the, unfortunately assaults that went down to them, but I was one of them anyway. Anyway, it was no, it was like one of those where it was like it felt like I was in a horror film because it was like truly like, oh, okay, I got off the subway. Huh. Those guys got off at the same station as me. That's weird. I'm just going to keep on going up the same route I would always go up. And I'm like, wow, they're really still following me. I'm just going to go up. And it was like one of those where it's like, if I go up this one like staircase like that goes up to this other like hill or whatever, like, and they follow me up there, that's how I know I'm kind of fucked. And like I kind of like went up it and like I was like, no, they would never go this way. And then they went up that way and I was like, oh fuck. And then it became that thing of like sort of like, okay, I know I'm gonna have to run, because there's two of them and I can't take them. So I was like, I have to speed walk, but also conserve enough energy going up this hill. Maybe I can get to like my dad's apartment before these guys catch up with me, sort of thing. But I was like just speed walking, like okay, just like keeping a bit, and eventually like they had to jog up to catch me and everything. And then it was like they got on me and they were like, hey man, how's it going? And like just right along the head and everything.
Damn.
And I was like, okay. And then I like ran into traffic. That's the other thing too. I was just like waiting for a car to come because it was like 2 a.m. and it's like no one was out driving at that point. It's sure it's the city that never sleeps, but there's a certain point where it's like, yeah,
except
no,
when you're getting robbed.
Yeah, like when there's no one around. And then, yeah, thankfully some cars. This is one of the funnier parts of the story is like, eventually they attacked me and then like I kind of went running into traffic and then like a couple cars slowed down and stuff and they kind of ran off because they realized like, oh shit, okay, and it was like, and this guy like rolled down his window and was just kind of like, hey, what's going on? And I was like, oh my god, these two guys, they just tried to mug me. And it was like, oh, okay. And they like rolled up his window, just kept driving. And I was just like, what the fuck?
It's like, I am not also being mugged.
It's like that part from Ghostbusters, you know what I mean? Where like Rick Moranis is like banging on the window and everything, being like, help me. And then like he gets got by the ghosts and everyone pauses and then just continues to eat their meal.
Like, I'm glad that's not happening to us.
And it's like, that was weird. Anyway.
Did you tell your father, was your dad asleep? Did you go home and go to bed, or did you like stay up and cry, or did you like punch a pillow or something? Like, oh, I should have done this,
No, I mean, it was definitely like I had nerves.
Yeah.
It was like one of those where it was like, oh shit, because like after those guys just drove off, I was kind of left alone. I was like, what the fuck? What am I gonna do? And then thankfully there's this guy who heard the whole thing who had like had swung his car around and everything and was like, oh hey, I overheard what happened and everything. Do you need a ride back? And I was just like flipping. I was like, hey man, I don't know. I'm like freaking out. Like, and the guy was like, I'll give you a ride back. Just calm down. I was like, oh, okay, cool. And his name was Tony, and he just
robbed you again.
yeah. And then he kind of took me back to his sex dungeon. Yeah. And then it was like, there. I mean, it could have been that bad. You know what I mean? In hindsight, I was happy he was a very nice man who just was like, yeah, people are coming up here all the time, like harassing people, blah, blah, blah. And it was like, oh, thank you, Tony. And he just dropped me off in front of my dad's place. And then just kind of like, I just spent the night. Eventually, I just fell asleep. Like, I had a beer and like kind of was just like, okay, centered myself and just fell back asleep. But, because I also like, it was one of those where it was like, it was scary, but it was also like, I've been punched harder, like, I don't know. Like, me and my friends, like, through high school, we were very into MMA. So we would like in my friend's basement, just kind of like he had bought like boxing equipment and like headgear, and we would just go over in his basement and just kind of box each other all the time.
Teenage fight club.
Yeah, it was our little teenage fight. It was fun, man.
Yeah,
it was
we
a
did
lot
that
of
stuff
fun
too.
Yeah. And it was just kind of like, I'd been rocked harder by my friends and stuff. And then like,
Yeah, it's good training.
Exactly. It was like one of those where it's like I didn't realize like, oh yeah, at least I can get punched in the head and be like, okay, I'm fine. Let's go.
Imagine if you had like a tough guy John Wick moment, like they hit you and you're like, I've been hit harder.
Yeah.
That would have stopped him.
That would have I don't know. I was also just a target too because, and this is a detail that I left out.
You're wearing a dress.
I was wearing an ICP T-shirt on. That's true, actually.
I don't really see that as like, because just all black. I mean, that's not really setting you aside.
You saw the
soft
hatchet,
target.
man. It was like kind of like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, you should have been like, you see the hatchet? I'm crazy.
Honestly, I thought that was, I don't know.
Should have like barked at him or something.
I should have.
Did you have like that? Did you have that like 2020 hindsight? Like thought, oh, if I did something different or better, or like, did you feel any like PTSD when you had to take the train and walk home again, or?
A little bit, but not really. No, not at all. Actually, it was like one of those where it's like kind of like I did everything right except X, Y. It was also one of those where it's like I knew I put myself in a situation. It's like in hindsight, that's where I'm like, okay, yeah, don't do that again. You know what I mean? Like, okay, don't make yourself a target.
Yeah.
You know, where it's like, if you're gonna like be out that late, do X, Y, and Z. Don't ride this train. Don't do. It's like there's stuff like that, and it's like yeah. I didn't really have any PTSD or anything like that. It was just like, okay, that's what happened there. All right, no better next time. I don't know.
Yeah, that's good. That's kind of how it goes.
It's just a healthy, like, truly just one of those, like, all right, logically, I've know how I sorted that in my head, and it's like, okay, I don't know. I'm very pragmatic like that with like mitigating emotions and like trauma, what have you, where it's like because I've had trauma, but it's like
You just shake it off.
a little
Just give it
bit.
the old Taylor Swift.
I wouldn't even say that. It's like it's not even compartmentalizing. It's just kind of like okay, evaluating. Like, all right, why did that make me feel that way? Because I can't afford therapy.
Yeah.
So it's like a lot of that where I'm like,
So
all right,
you just are your therapist. Yeah.
basically. Where
I
it's
think you
like,
were like that too, because you're like, this is what they're gonna ask. So
Yeah.
I might as well just ask myself.
yeah, I was like exactly where it's like, how are you feeling? Like wellness check bullshit. Where it's like, how are you feeling? Like, and keeping like kind of like
Angry.
yeah, and I think that's also why I'm very fortunate to have like a partner and a wife who it's like a lot of times we do have those discussions where it's like I'm feeling very angry right now and I don't know why. And I'm like trying to like work this out and she's like, "Well, tell me what happened today so far." And it's like, "Well, this and this. I think it's because of the it's like
I keep
just
getting robbed.
I keep getting mugged by people."
Yeah, imagine if it just happened every night.
Yeah.
Just two guys just waiting for you.
People are just attacking me because I'm wearing this ICP T-shirt all the time, and I don't understand why.
I just want to be a juggalo.
It's just a lifestyle, and that I agree with all their choices.
When my first base when I was in the Air Force, I was stationed in Arkansas and Japan. When I was in Arkansas, it was a hillbilly country. It was complete southern, like every stereotype you can picture in your head. And,
Hell yeah.
and there was a Walmart down there, and so like going to the Walmart was the big thing to do. Especially we were underage too. We were 19, so we couldn't do much. So we'd go to Walmart, drive, walk around. And one time I was in the Walmart, and I saw this guy that was a full-on juggalo. It was a whole group of juggalos. They all were just, you can just see him from a mile away, right?
Awesome.
And this one guy, I walked past him, and I was like, oh, that guy's really committed. Like, he's got his face painted out in public. I'm like, that's kind of ridiculous. And then as he got closer and he passed me, I was like, no fucking way. I was like, does that guy have his whole face tattooed?
Whoa.
And I was like, I got to see this. So I like doubled back around the aisles. He had both cheeks tattooed black, and then he had the triangles on his forehead and on his cheeks with a little dot, like to be like a full clown face.
I don't even think
Tattooed.
Man, that's wild. I don't even think Violent J does that shit. He's like, no, I gotta like show up to court or whatever. So I gotta like
take the kids to school.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not gonna show up at PTA meeting.
It's like I'm not always the insane clown.
Yeah, sometimes I'm just Jay.
Yeah, this guy wanted to be the insane clown forever.
You know what? Hey, that's the thing. Some people, like, juggalos commit to that lifestyle, and it's like,
Absolutely.
yeah. They're very libertarian, I feel like. They're very, like, rights-oriented. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a couple of good pieces of people, like, going to juggalo events and doing, like, interviews and things like that.
Yeah,
funny.
where it's like they're just very, like, no, I'm a normal person. I just kind of like this shit, I don't want people telling me what to do with my body or whatever, and, like, kind of, I don't know. It's very kind of, well... Yeah, they're not as like weirdly destructive. I don't know. I have like a mild respect for the juggalo.
A mild respect for the juggalo.
Yeah.
Just ever slightest.
Because I'm just not a fan of the music. That's my only issue. Where it's like
the music is remarkably terrifying.
Yeah, I mean, like anytime where it's, I don't know.
Yeah, I remember like the kids listening to it in school and me being like, "This is like." I don't know, but it's surprising to me actually because of your love of horror movies, Will.
Yeah, you think
So you think you'd like horror
it.
songs about cutting off preachers' heads and
Like,
stuffing women in
it's just not
car trunks and
to
whatever
me,
else they
like,
sing about.
it's like hip hop, but it's just not good rap music. I don't know. Where it's like I like good rap music,
Yeah.
and it's just like
There's a lot of novelty to it.
yeah, that's my problem with it. Where it's just like, oh, this is like kind of like the jokey shit. You know, it's like the stuff that like. You ever listened to like NWA's like early stuff, like when Dre was just kind of like starting, he was doing songs about like there's a really funny one where he's like doing a rap about Frankenstein and like all the yeah, it's true. It's like
Oh, wow. I don't know if I've heard that one.
hip hop kind of had its start in like joke songs.
Oh, yeah. It was really hokey in the beginning for sure.
Yeah, before it was like, oh,
Before
we
crack.
should. Yeah, I mean, truly, before it was like, hey, we actually want to say something about, you know, our living situation and like, you know, societal whatever.
Yeah, and then society was like, shut the fuck up.
Well, then they were like, I mean, truly, that whole thing from gangster rap to like how hip hop evolved was like that thing of like, okay, things got really intense with like, you know, just burning down L.A., but we chill out a little bit and just kind of like make some party albums and everything. And then like after that, that's like when the Chronic dropped and all these other like kind of just chill like, hey, let's smoke weed, you know? Okay. Yeah, I was just thinking about the 90s right now.
Yeah, I was thinking about the LA riots a little bit.
Yeah.
My father was there.
Oh my God.
Yeah, my mom was pregnant with me.
Wow.
And my dad was in the Marines stationed in Camp Pendleton. And he was in Los Angeles for the weekend. And so my mom was home pregnant with me. And like, you know, it's the 90s. There's no cell phones or anything. And my dad is there and it's on the news and everything. And he was, you know, nothing happened to him, thankfully. And he was able to kind of just drive out of it.
Right.
But he said that he saw like, you know, a lot of the police activity.
Dang, man.
Things like that.
It sounded like a literal nightmare. There's like that documentary I really wanted to watch, actually. I forget. It's like...
LA Rising.
Is that what it's called?
I think so. It came out a couple years ago.
Yeah. It was like kind of like... there was another one, too. I think it was like an A&E one.
There's a few good ones.
Yeah, that just like... You talk to like all the like people involved, like, you know, police officers who were just literally like, we're going in there... Let my, you know, wife know I'm not gonna make it, blah blah blah, like intense shit like that, and it's like,
and all like the Koreans in Koreatown, that's so famous too.
It's so crazy, like literally, like you know, and it's nuts. It's just like, oh, that's just like it looks like the breakdown to society. You know, it's like, oh, that's just how the Mad Max starts, right? Where it's just like a city just tears itself apart, but then it was just like, oh yeah, then it came back, and then I was like, okay.
Yeah, it always kind of comes back around.
Yeah. And then they shot a bunch of episodes of Entourage. Everything seemed fine in LA, you know?
Yeah, and then they did the BLM riots, kind of a little throwback.
Yeah.
It was much less damage and much more looting.
Yeah, you know.
Actually, I don't know what the looting was like in the 90s one. I just know they burned a lot of stuff down.
I mean, it looks like you watch those videos and stuff, and it's like kind of like, yeah, people were just like tearing apart, you know, apartments, like, you know, department stores and stuff like that, you know?
I feel like I don't know if it happened less or if that was so big, but I mean, all the riots that we've kind of seen since in our like modern adulthood I feel like they've been in comparison. Like in Kenosha, they burned down a whole police station.
Yeah, I mean, the stuff over like COVID and stuff, those like police riots were like insane. I mean, you know, you do that thing like where it's like, oh, you know, not to get whatever with it, but you track like the trends of violence over time, and it's like people say like, well, technically speaking, we are becoming less and less violent. Like shit is not as bad as they want to make it believe, where it's like, oh, everything's falling apart, but it's like not really. We are becoming like less like violent crimes are trending down in a way. They're not that it's gone. There's still like some crazy things that go down, but at the same time, it's like it's not like the 70s. Where like there's shit in the 70s and everything that were like people were like they were like militant like domestic terrorist groups like in America just like shooting down choppers and everything like that, like literally like like the Symbionese like liberation front and everything with like Patty Hearst and like all these other, and that was just one, and they were kind of a joke one too. They didn't really do anything except like rob a bunch of banks and all that.
Where were they located?
They were like San Francisco based, like L.A. You know, kind of. I don't know. That was like one of those because they were all like what was it, college students and stuff like that. You know, like the Symbionese, like
I haven't heard that one. That's what I was curious about.
Well, because that's a part of that whole Patty Hearst.
I don't know the name. Who's Patty Hearst?
Oh, you never heard of Patty Hearst? It was like technically one of the most famous kidnappings slash true crime stories in America. Patty Hearst.
What was the time frame?
It was the 70s. It was like early 70s, I think 72 or something like that. And the Symbionese Liberation Front was this Afrocentric group of people that essentially were like, oh, we want more rights for African Americans in this country, blah, blah, blah. It was fascinating, though, because it was led by this one dude. Because it's like, you hear that, it's like, oh, obviously it was like, a bunch of black people kind of running this. No, it was actually one black dude who actually got kicked out of all these other African American rights groups because they were like, you are insane. You're actually kind of like,
bad for our image.
Bad literally for our movement and everything because you are insane. And he managed to convince like all these like white students who had like such severe white guilt something that they were like kind of or whatever. They just were like so like they truly wanted to be black. They were like kind of like so they all got like Swahili names and stuff like that. Essentially, yeah, they were just all these just and they came up with this plan to kidnap one of the Hearst children, Patty Hearst, and like, do you know
yes,
William Randolph Hearst's granddaughter, essentially, and they were like, got her, and they kidnapped her and kept her in like a closet for several months before. Yeah, it was actually really intense. Where they were like assaulting her sexually and like, sorry, this is getting really dark, but she kind of like flipped the script on them and managed to kind of like convince them to like let her out of the closet, and she kind of like essentially, quote unquote, joined the.
What's Stockholm syndrome? So she faked Stockholm syndrome.
She kind of fakes. It was like it's like one of those that they tell you like in any like if you're in any kind of kidnapping situation, you got to just ingratiate yourself to you kidnap. Be like, hey, I'm a person. You could talk to me. Talked about it. Hey, like what's going on in your life and everything. And that's what she did. She essentially was like, hey, I feel you out. Like I understand the Symbionese Liberation Front and everything.
Yeah, totally.
Like totally. I should get a Swahili name too, and like blah blah blah, and like they eventually let her out of the closet, and then she had to join the group essentially, and then like be a part of like their, bank robberies and everything, and it's like you're gonna change your name. Your name's now Tanya because it's that was Che Guevara's girlfriend's name and everything, and you're gonna come out and say that on camera, blah 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 blah, and like. And we're going to get money from your family and, like, do all this stuff. And she was like, yes, I will do all that, blah, blah, blah. And she kind of just hung with the group until, like, eventually they were all murdered in a big shootout, actually, like, in Compton. It's insane, actually. This is a crazy story. And then eventually the police did catch up to her and, like, she had to serve time, but it was, like, kind of... a
little pat on the back, something like a country.
I think it was one of those where it's like I think she got
country club kind of jail.
I don't know. I think
where
she
Martha
did.
Stewart went.
She did go to hardcore jail because people were just like,
we don't believe you.
You shot at people. You shot at officers of the law and everything, and it was like, yeah, I did. Choice. But I had to, it's one of those where it's like she served time, but had to because I don't know. And I agree with it. It's like, yeah, I mean. You had to do what you had to do to survive, especially after all the abuse. But also, like, well, you did shoot at people. So it's like, okay. And I think she got sentenced 10 years, but then got 3 because of good behavior. And then, I don't know. She kind of, like, became really good friends with John Waters and showed up in Serial Mom. So, she's lived an interesting life.
So she started singing in Pink Floyd?
No. Oh my God, John Waters, not what's his face?
Roger. Rogers.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. It was like kind of like working. It was like, wait, why Pink Floyd? Oh.
You have extensive knowledge on that, Will. That was impressive.
Yeah,
I'm gonna check that one out.
I'm a wealth of just like what's the word? Obscure history or like
anti-government dissidents.
Yeah, I'm big into that. I'm
Oh,
big
yeah.
into like just kind of like macabre story, true crime stories in general. Like I know a lot about like alternative history kind of stuff where it's like, oh, yeah, you know about this, blah 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 blah.
This is where you get your bubbly bingo personality.
A little bit,
So where did the bingo come from? You've been doing this, you said, about 5 years?
Yeah, I mean, I did it like back in 2019. That's when I started doing it with like Tim Oliver, and because he was like hosting bingo at Gulu Gulu Cafe, and he was like, "I'm getting tired. I need a co-host that's gonna help out. Will, do you want to be a co-host?" And I was like, "Sure, I'll do it." And it was just kind of like 2 hours of just futzing around on stage, saying funny things, blah blah blah. And then eventually, like, the global pandemic hit, and then it was like that went away. And then eventually they were like, hey, do you want to come back? We're going to, like, we want to start having events again at Gulu Gulu. But it's got to be outside. It's got to be masked and, like, blah, blah, blah. And my buddy Tim was just kind of like, no, I'm good. I don't really want to do that again. I don't really have any interest. And then I was just like, well, I want to do it again. I don't know. It was like kind of fun money. And from there, it was like I just kind of stuck with it. I think that was 2021 or whatever. And I've just been doing it since, just like every year. I don't know.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Has there been any like drama or tumultuous situations there? You ever have any like Karens or anybody fighting or arguing about bingo? Two people saying bingo at the same time?
Oh, we keep it pretty civil. You know why? Because it's like, first off, no real money on the line, which is nice. You know, you're not buying into it. It's free to play. So people usually respect the thing of just kind of like, because we used to do rock, paper, scissors. There's this all minutia that I'm not sure is actually interesting to talk about, but it is the truth of it is like, no, people are pretty chill. People usually get like, oh, okay, he called bingo first, that's why he gets to spin. All right, that's fine, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, and I have to explain. But some people do get a little like, but I called it. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you.
Do you know how it works? Because it can't all be random, right? Like it's wind blowing balls.
Right.
So how does the ones come up eventually to hit bingo?
It just is like the assortment of, numbers and stuff on the card.
Are there some times where it'll happen quick?
Yeah. And that will kind of like
interesting
speed up. Yeah, because some people just have that golden bingo card where it's like you just call like
the GBC.
Yeah, exactly. Boom, 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 and it's like, especially if someone gets a diagonal, it's like you call B, you call an I, you call a G, and you call an O, and then like boom, free space, and it's like boom. It's like you could just call 4 numbers, and someone's like bingo, and it's just like, holy shit, the round's over.
Bingo.
And other times it can go for like 40 minutes or something of just like kind of like, okay, I feel it on this one and no one's got it. And you could see the frustration because someone will get it, but then it's like you come down and the person's like, I had bingo here, I had bingo here, I had bingo here. If you only called this number, I just needed one on all of these and you didn't call. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you.
Bingo gods.
That's the bingo gods decide those numbers. I'm just the humble person just pulls them and it's like, is what it is.
And how about the prizes? Do you come up with those? Those are quite unique, impressive prizes you have there.
I get a stipend like to pick up prizes and stuff, and then I curate it. I'm like kind of like, okay, usually candy can't go wrong, and then it's like some fun stuff.
Yeah.
I keep it
it's
fun.
A lot of unique, quirky, fun stuff.
That's the thing where it's like some stuff. It's like, oh, that's kind of neat. It's a little like tea cozy thing, or like a coaster, or a beer mug, or whatever. And then like other times, it's like a little weirder. It's a nice. You want to have a nice mix of things where it's like, oh, that'd be kind of fun to win, and then it's like, what am I gonna do with this? What a ridiculous thing! Oh, and then it's perfect because especially when you're drinking, which we encourage when you play bingo and everything, you walk away being like, I got VHS tape of Armageddon. Okay, cool. Wow. I'm going to show this at my dorm. College kids love that shit,
Oh, man. That's awesome. Well, Will, this has been a lot of fun, dude.
Yeah,
Been
this has
great.
been fantastic.
Can you let people know where they can see you? See you for bingo and for stand up?
Absolutely. I'm doing stand-up all the time in Salem, usually like at Hollowed Ground or here in Beverly off Cabot, I'll do. But bingo, I'm always hosting it every Wednesday, 6 p.m., 8 p.m. sharp, and at the Gulu Gulu Cafe, dead center in downtown Salem. Hit me up. You could check me on my Instagram at Will Pottorff, at TikTok too. All the social media things, I'm now
We'll
on
get the
Blue
links.
Sky. That's cool. Yeah. Blue Sky. Another
the
one of
links in
those.
there.
Cool. Get me on Threads. All right. Yeah. Yeah. I'm on Hinge too. Yeah. I'm already married and having a relationship, but I want to talk to people. Is that allowed? Yeah.
You got to run it by her first, I think.
Yeah. We watch people together, and then I'm allowed to talk to them. Yeah. It's fine.
All right, dude. I love you. This was a good time.
I love you too, Jake. This
Talk
is
to you
so much
soon.
fun. See you later, man.